If you ever needed confirmation of how little Donald Trump and MAGA cared about Charlie Kirk, all you need to do is look to Dallas this morning, where a fatal ICE shooting has left 2 dead, and Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and the rest of MAGA are already trying to use it for their political gain. But they have been caught lying, and those lies are backfiring. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into this breaking news and why Donald Trump has been caught in this lie, I want to start with the most important truth that we need to hear right now about how the right is unfairly maligning our rhetoric and hiding the fact that they are the ones causing political violence.
Yeah, actually. Or maybe just in addition, because we're just having a conversation about it. I would love it if nobody would use this kind of rhetoric anymore. And I think Amy Klobuchar made the point very well when Kash Patel was in front of the Senate this week, where she just said, I just want this to stop. I want people to stop demonizing each other. I want people to stop talking about each other this way. But that road has to go in both directions. And you say that the Democrats normalize this just in preparing for the show, looking back at what Trump said about Kamala, even from just that short 107 days. She's a fascist, okay? She's a fascist. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. Actually, she's not a socialist. She's gone, oh, that's funny. Somebody's got to explain this. This is a radical left communist fascist. Politics today is between these far left fascists led by Harris and her group. And I know that we are supposed to live in a world where we don't take Donald Trump seriously because he just splatters everything all over all the time. And so we shouldn't think he really thinks she's a fascist or whatever. But that kid sitting at home who's been radicalized online heard all those things too.
Yeah, but
he
wasn't
radicalized.
Yes,
but there is a reason that the Justice Department removed a study from their website showing that the majority of ideological motivated murders in this country by far and away were carried out by right-wing extremists. They took that down this week.
Right,
why?
Jessica,
Because
Either fascist is a bad word or it isn't. Republicans constantly call liberals communist and dictators and fascist and use words like Marxist that they don't understand. But when we correctly draw comparisons between Donald Trump and other fascistic regimes, it's a problem. Why? Because we're right and what you're doing is dangerous. We're not vilifying Donald Trump. Donald Trump makes himself the villain. What is stripping funding for pediatric cancer research? Is that a positive? Should we not vilify that? Should we not point it out? What is instructing your attorney general to go after your political opponents or else she'll be fired? Is that not a dictator? Is that not someone who is expanding an authoritarian regime? So no, us calling out Donald Trump is not vilifying him. And Donald Trump really doesn't care about the rhetoric from his side, as he said right here.
Radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone, they want open borders. The worst thing that happened...
I just think it is so important to come to these conversations with an honest truth about who is actually pushing rhetoric that puts people in harm's way and who is actually putting people in harm's way. And that is Donald Trump's administration. That, of course, does not justify any of the violence that we saw today, which we are going to get into, but it certainly explains why people in this moment are so scared. When there are masked ICE agents patrolling the streets, of course people are going to be terrified, anxious, and worried about this administration. Now, that doesn't change the fact that political violence is not the answer to that, but Donald Trump's administration is carrying out political violence. And then they're doing so in response to any pushback in order to get political gain. And that is why, in the wake of the shooting that we just saw in Dallas, J.D. Vance jumped to lie, and it all backfired on him. MAGA jumps to blame deadly ICE shooting on radical left. MAGA Republicans have jumped to blame Democrats for a fatal shooting at a Texas immigration facility that killed 2 people and injured another. Federal authorities say detainees were among the victims and no federal agents had been shot. However, even before the circumstances of the shooting were known, Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X that the obsessive attacks on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop. Right-wing provocateur Laura Loomer also chimed in, declaring that it's pretty obvious a memo has gone out to the radical left. They will be killing their targets from rooftops. We can see that tweet from Vance right here. And one social media user whose profile is an image of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis even went so far as to suggest that Democrats such as Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Jasmine Crockett, AOC should be arrested for demeaning ICE. Democrats like Newsom, Pritzker, AOC, and Crockett are purposefully doing this in the hopes that the radicals in their party will commit acts of violence. The shooting took place before 6:40 a.m. at the Dallas Immigration and Customs Enforcement Field Office, a facility that is typically used to process illegal immigrants after they have been arrested and before they are transported to a long-term detention facility. According to a preliminary police investigation, the suspect opened fire on the officer from an adjacent building. 2 people were transported to a hospital with gunshot wounds, while a third person died at the scene. The shooter died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. However, details are still emerging, and the FBI is now assisting in the investigation. The shooting, nonetheless, took place amid escalating tensions over ICE, whose officers are central to Donald Trump's mass deportation strategy. So before we knew the motives of a shooter, J.D. Vance is already ascribing political ideology, and MAGA is jumping to say that Gavin Newsom, Jasmine Crockett, J.B. Pritzker, and AOC should be arrested. This is dangerous. These people don't care about the facts of a situation. These people don't care about getting us to a place where political violence and the epidemic, the policy failure of gun violence in this country is something that we have long forgotten. They just want to get a political win out of it. And J.D. Vance immediately jumped to say that ICE agents had lost their lives when, of course, the shooting, as it appears right now, was directed at ICE agents, but the only people who have tragically lost their lives to gun violence today were the detainees at the facility. Is J.D. Vance going to ask for a state funeral for them, or does he not care because it's not as politically expedient for him? Well, yeah, that's just the truth here. They will jump to ascribe motives as quickly as possible because that's what they're focused on. It is no longer thoughts and prayers from the right. It is the right immediately jumping to pray that the shooter was someone that they can claim to be radical left so Donald Trump can expand his authoritarian project. They just don't care except for what they can gain, which is why, before an investigation had even started, Ted Cruz said this.
It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the 3rd shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their...
So this is Democrats again? This is the radical left? Oh, we're organizing people to go and commit these crimes? We couldn't organize enough people to vote for Kamala people. Are we serious? And maybe we talk about the guns for a second. No, we're never going to talk about the guns. It is just embarrassing to have to live with a Republican Party that cries communist and says that Democrats are less than human and that our party needs to be destroyed and Donald Trump says we're animals, but then is also afraid of our rhetoric. Really ours? Our rhetoric? And I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that political violence is what ICE agents commit on communities, on immigrants in this country, on citizens, on children. There was a story the other day, and I apologize for maybe not having the details exactly straight, of ICE agents who essentially held a young girl hostage so her father would leave the house and turn himself over to be detained by ICE. That's what we're seeing right now. It's one of the largest standing militaries in the world Donald Trump has built with his ICE agents who go into blue cities and tell people as they are beating up the members of communities, the immigrants, who just want a better life, who want to make our country better, who actually love our country. While they're dragging them away, they say, liberals already ruined America. Do you remember that clip from D.C., that ICE agent? Liberals already ruined America. I can't ruin America. Liberals already did. A masked law enforcement officer dragging someone away to God knows where said liberals ruined America. Sit with that for a second. That's what we're dealing with. That is political violence. It is. And for us to not treat it the same, call it out, be unapologetic in saying it's wrong, that is a failure on our part. That's what needs to be condemned. That's what needs to be covered more. We cannot let them win this battle. And it is. It's a messaging battle. We can't let Republicans extract as much political gain as possible as any tragedy that they want to say is the fault of Democrats, and capitulate and vote to honor Charlie Kirk, the racist fucking bigot that he was, without saying, hey, if you want to talk about political violence, maybe stop dragging little kids out of classrooms. I don't know. And we say, and we still have, got to say, a messaging fight coming up as it relates to a government shutdown that Greg Kazar spoke on right here.
Look, Democrats are out here saying, we want to make sure you have your health care. We want to make sure that your costs are lower. Democrats should keep on advocating for the things that take care of everyday people, while you have Donald Trump saying he won't even have a meeting about keeping the government open. Donald Trump saying he won't give in to demands to save people's health care. I think we've got Donald Trump exactly where we want him, which is having to have a real debate about real people's lives. Trump wants to deflect and talk about Kimmel or Greenland. But if Democrats stay in the fight and make sure the conversation is about what matters to everyday people watching at home, then I think Trump is scared he's going to lose if we have to talk about the real issues.
I know sometimes it might feel like we talk a lot about messaging on this show. I think it's just so important, and this is a show where we talk about political issues, so I think it's okay. But we cannot let the media continue to frame this battle as one that Democrats are responsible for losing. It's the same question around political violence. We need to be more assertive, and we are certainly going to be on this show, and we are going to be unapologetic. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you want to support my Substack, support the show in another way, you can subscribe right here at the link below, becoming a paid or free subscriber, one of the best ways to support the show. Keep on fighting. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.